Well, it is Monday night, and for some reason, that audio right there is not going out to YouTube. So there is the little chink in my armor that I've been trying to figure out all night. Well, how's it going, everybody? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone. It is Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Leslie's over there. I'm over here. And do me a favor, Leslie, if you would, and tell everybody how they can be a part of the conversation this evening.
All right. So if you're listening in on kprlive.com, we are also live over at youtube.com/Dylan Talks Tone, and there's live chat available right there. And you can ask questions, interact with us. It's usually good conversation, live chat during the show that you can only see when you watch live during the show. So pretty exclusive content.
That's it. No, that's it.
And
man.
I'm in there to chat with you. So
exactly.
Come hang out.
Yep. And tonight we have another camera. How about that? So just so you guys kind of know what's going on here, this is a little bit experimental this week. We keep making everything better, but what that means is every time we make something better, you know, we might make a mistake here or there as we're trying to make this whole thing better. This week we got a new mixing board, so I'm pretty stoked about that thing. In fact, here, let me show it to you. It's pretty sweet. So it is a PreSonus AR12, and it is a really sweet board. So what we are able to do now is we're able to have YouTube go out to the iPad that I have in my hand, and that goes out to YouTube. That's on my monitor 2 over here. On the monitor 2 stand, this is just monitor 1's just Leslie, because we have to have a whole nother little setup for her because I don't have a proper headphone amp and audio coming in that you did not hear, so I got to figure out what I've got screwed up there. And I know exactly what it is. There, that's fixed. See, just learning as we go. And then me and Leslie over here. And right now, Kemper is only mono, but we're going to go ahead and do a stereo mix for the Kemper. This thing is super sweet. It has a digital recorder built into it. We're not using that tonight. We actually use this piece of software. I've never actually showed you guys all of this, but we actually use this piece of software. This is actually, right now, this is live going out to the internets on the radio station, the internet radio station. And then I've got another computer up there so I can talk to people. And yeah, man, this is super fun. It's really, really cool having this entire setup, you know. And then, of course, the pedal board down here and all that stuff. So the only downside I've not figured out completely yet is, like, I got to put my hat on backwards, which I haven't done yet this week.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Were you thinking that camera was running?
No, this camera was not running.
Okay. You moved it around like you thought it was, so I was confused as to what I was seeing versus...
Oh, did I not show? So this was not...
Correct.
No. You know, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. Because I'm using a new preview thing. The same thing. We're just learning as we go.
No, this camera is the one that was on you the whole time.
Oh, all right. Well... Anyway, you got the idea. And I got a new desk chair that I'm still trying to figure, like everything. We're trying to figure everything out. So I've got the microphone bonking me in the front. I've got the chair bonking me in the back. It might have to be a no hat thing, but I don't.
Can you drop that down? Can't you drop that?
Yeah, I'll figure it out. Whatever. No big deal.
You have to just sit up all proper.
We're having fun. I don't care. You know what I mean? This is just doing this is fun anyway, and it just doesn't even matter. So tonight, a couple of the things we're going to talk about. So let's just throw these up here really quick. We are going to talk about how pickups work. And I say for real because we're not just going to talk about wires wrapped around magnets. And we're not going to just talk about 7.6K. We're going to talk about real how pickups work. Okay, some pretty nerdy stuff, and then we'll talk about why none of it matters. But we're gonna get really nerdy. Okay, so it's gonna be kind of fun. And then the other thing that people have been requesting is when you bake a neck, so a torrefied or baked neck for a guitar. We're going to talk about when that is necessary. Can it be kind of a gimmick sometimes? Okay, so that was a question from last week on the very end of the show, and I did not want to miss it. So in fact, we were sitting here today going over our stuff for the show, and she's like, there was a question, we cannot forget it. And I almost did, but it came together at the last minute. We know exactly what we're doing. Well, we don't know exactly what we're doing, but we're going to try to fake it. And let's see what else. What else do we want to talk about tonight? Anything? We got questions already, right?
Yeah, we have at least one question. He was trying to squeeze in like a pre-question, and then by the time he got his pre-question in, it was time. So we'll have to make sure we catch that.
What was the question?
Oh.
Let's see. Oh, Adam asked this earlier, so let's talk about this right now. Have you tried, I'm going to paraphrase for grammar the best I can.
No, he corrected himself too to have you tried. I just didn't share that part.
Have you tried any of the Fishman Fluence pickups? I tried the classic humbuckers, and they were so unbelievably bright as to be unusable for how I play. I've got the Strat ones in the mail. My experience with those has been exactly the opposite. That I feel like the stuff is so so flat and gross that I couldn't use it. So not bright. But the thing about them is they are adjustable. There is a setup kind of thing about them. And if you, you gotta learn them. You gotta learn them, and I don't know enough about them to really be able to tell you, everything there is to know about them, because I've not learned everything. I want to.
So is that the answer? You have not tried
them? I have
them,
tried. Okay, so I've tried the humbucker one. This is what I was getting to. I've tried the humbucker ones, and didn't like them at all because I thought they were muddy. But you can switch them. So he might have had them all the way bright, and I might have had them all. There's different voices. There's like, I don't know, I think 3 different voices or something, or I don't remember what it is, but and I didn't like them at all. Kevin sent them to me to try, and then, but Greg Koch plays the Telly ones, and he's absolutely in love with them. And I heard him play them, and I was like, these sound really, really good. So I want to try them. I just haven't tried them. They're expensive.
Right.
Real expensive. And I have not gotten the opportunity for somebody, to say, hey, do you want to try these things? And I just haven't gotten around to it. But I really want to, because it is a piece of technology that is very solid, and it makes sense. It's printed circuit board coils that can be stacked and arranged in such a way to actually really, really be cool. When you get your Strat ones in, please make a video, post it on our stuff, do whatever, like let us know, because we'd love to hear it.
He said he tried every switchable setting that was available.
Oh, did he? And he just couldn't bring himself to like them, huh? And that could be a thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not sure until I get some more seat time with a set.
And then somebody said, I feel like I can EQ out bright but not add it back later. So I like to be too bright and then use the amp to equalize.
Bingo. Yeah. That's exactly what I say. You hear me say it all the time. That's why I put 500K pots in everything, because I want them as bright as possible. And then, or not bright as possible, but we'll get into that when we talk about pickups and how they work, and what happens with those. But at the same time, the higher resistance pots, how do I explain this? The higher resistance pots are going to allow more of the pure pickup tone to come through. And if you have a good pickup, it can give you more to work with. Really, really super fun. And that's why I like them. So, what else? Before we get into all that stuff, let's see. The Super Bowl was amazing.
That was the Justin Timberlake concert, just saying.
That was a Justin Timberlake concert. There seemed to be a lot of angry people on Facebook today about Justin Timberlake, and I will just not allow that on my Facebook because I feel like if you don't like him or if you have an opinion of hatefulness towards somebody like that, then either you're too old or you need, to have some therapy or something. So just be nice. 'Cause he's a good performer, and this is 2018.
He is a performer is the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, he's a great singer. I don't know.
People were taking credit away from him because he doesn't write his own songs and stuff, which is not absolutely true. He does write his own music. He writes for a lot of other people as well. It is an interesting thing. We might have to do a whole nother episode on how the music industry has changed, and the way you be creative and make a living now with music is different than it was back in the 70s when everyone had mullets and IROC-Zs. I mean, it's just a totally different time. So, the fact that he's got to wear new Air Jordans because that's literally what's keeping his lights on, it has nothing to do with the music, and everybody's going to say, well, that's commercial. But that's how the world is, like this show right here, it doesn't, I pay for everything, but when we get help from somebody else, I got to mention their name when they help us, because that's how things go. That's how you keep things going. And what's interesting is, instead of him making lots of money for every song that he sells, because the way royalties work and all that stuff, he has to go get a tennis shoe deal. Right? That's what has to happen. So, we don't make money off of our clicks off of YouTube. So if somebody pays us to do a review, that's how we make money. That's just, it's a totally different way of being creative. And you can still be creative within that. And I think he does. It's very cool. He's a very cool guy, I think. I'm actually friends with his guitar player, and I forgot that until he posted something this morning. So yeah, and the Super Bowl was actually good. We won't get into winners and losers, but it was actually a good game, which was really fun. There's even people not liking the commercials. I thought they were awesome. Not all of them. Some of them were pretty dumb.
Mountain Dew, Morgan Freeman.
That one was good.
Singing Missy Elliott was incredible.
That was pretty awesome.
And some football players doing Dirty Dancing.
Was pretty funny as well.
That was good.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. So I tell you what, let's get into one of our subjects right now, because our night is going to get away from us because of, it just always does. Right?
There was nothing there.
No. So let's talk about
nothing.
Let's talking about baking our necks. Is it worth it? Okay, we're going to talk about...
I almost wanted to sing.
Oh, my God. Missy Elliott reference. Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So, torrefied wood. We hear this a lot. We hear, should I get my, if I'm building a guitar, should I bake the neck? Should I have it? Well, here's what it does. It's really pretty simple. When you bake the neck ahead of time before you build it, basically what it does is it crystallizes, for lack of a better term, all the moisture and sap in the wood. So it solidifies it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is no longer soft. And what that does, in very loose terms, is, and somebody that's really, 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 really knows about wood, and I know a few people that do, this is where I learned this stuff, but I don't care about the details on that level. But basically, if you crystallize and solidify the liquid, more or less, in the wood, it becomes stiffer and more stable. Here's the thing. It's not 100% necessary all the time. This Telecaster neck right here has been made like this since the 40s, and nobody ever did that. Tonally, it's not going to change anything. Everybody's going to argue about that. Now, in an acoustic guitar, when they bake it, that's a different story, because you are actually changing the rigidity of the acoustic guitar top. So torrefied wood in an acoustic guitar is a different thing. That's literally like changing the material in a drum head. Okay. So that there could be something to that, but in an electric guitar in the neck, you're going to hear people are going to, they'll argue this forever and ever and ever, but it's not going to make, for 99% of the players out there, if I didn't tell you that it was baked and you couldn't tell, because you can tell how it looks, if you didn't know that, you'd never know the difference playing it. Okay. Now, that being said, it looks amazing, number one. And number two, it feels good, because it does something to the grain that it just feels good when you hold the back of one. They feel fantastic. Now, there's a couple of times when it is really, in my opinion anyway, very, very necessary to actually bake a piece of wood. And that is when you have irregular grains, okay? So we know that the guitar neck goes this way, and when you quarter saw or flat saw the wood, the grains are going with the neck this way, right? But let's take a look at a picture. Let's take figured wood for an example, okay? And let's take figured wood for an example, and you see how the grains are going across the wood instead of long ways. Now, there are a few different kind of theories about how this happens. There's a few different theories about how this happens, and one of them is, see, this is what I was wanting to do all night. I was just so excited about this feature. One of the theories, the reason why you have that cross going this way, and it's just a theory. There's a lot of research done on this, and people have a couple different ideas. But like when the tree crotches, right? Like when one piece of wood goes one way and the tree goes the other way, it can happen right there. It can also happen if a tree is extremely heavy and it basically squishes like elephant ankles almost. But the bottom line is the grain is not 100% as stable, because it's got these grains going this way versus the grains that should be going the other way, right? And so when you have this, a lot of times you can have an unstable neck. I have had guitars with tiger maple. You remember that one? Leslie will even remember it. I had this one Tele style guitar that we built with a custom tiger maple neck, and you had to chase it every time the weather changed, every time we traveled with it somewhere. I mean, it went on tour with actually John Bollinger had it for like a year, and he had to chase it. I mean, we ended up doing something else with the guitar because it just, that wood was so unstable because of the of the piece of wood. Now, if that wood had been baked and solidified a lot more, then it would not. It would reduce the chance of warping. Like what is being, somebody asked, would it reduce the chance of warping? And it's not necessarily a warping thing as much as it is when the heat and the moisture expands and contracts, the wood moves. And since it can't, because it's solid now, it's less susceptible to that. I'll show you another way that you can do this. If you have this here, basically what you're seeing here is a piece of, it's a neck with Richlite stringers in it. If you have a really figured neck that will be kind of unstable because of that, but you put like a Richlite stringer in it long ways, then you can have more stability that way. which is what he's done with this build. He actually ordered Richlite from me, and he was showing me how he's doing that. And you notice there he actually put a Richlite cap on the peg head. Pretty cool stuff. So, no, very, very cool stuff. Very, very fun question. I'm glad somebody asked it last week, actually, because it's a very, very fun question.
And apparently when you have the two different tree trunks like you were trying to describe, it's called a codominant trunk.
A codominant trunk?
Yes.
Okay.
We're being educated. I like it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I have friends that really, really know a lot about wood, and a lot of times I'll ask them a question about this, just enough so I can understand how it applies to what I
knowing
know.
What a piece of wood is and knowing how it grew in a tree are two different things.
Exactly. And
I can tell you about some insects and diseases in the southeast, but that has nothing to do with guitar. So.
In trees, yeah. So someday when you get to have a beer with us, you ask her about bugs. She'll be able to tell you some stuff you did not know or did not need to know.
Random.
Yep. She knows some stuff about some bugs. Yeah, and I mean, as a guitar builder, I need to know some of that. Because, you know, especially as we're doing some of these newer ideas and trying new things and understanding how grain lays in a guitar body, especially when you're putting two different pieces of wood together. You know, there are certain kinds of wood that you should never glue together. Like when you see various, various guitars that have like 3 or 4 pieces in it, you know, some of those fancy basses and stuff. There's some pieces of wood that just should never be put together because their expansion and contraction rates and the grain densities and all that sort of stuff. And so when I get into really complicated stuff like that, I literally just go ask somebody. Because, I mean, I know enough to not get into trouble.
You know enough to stop to ask the question.
Exactly. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. And like, I'll let somebody else be a nerd about that. And then I'll just go and ask them, say, okay, I want to try this. And no, it's not a good idea. Okay. Well, then I won't try it, you know, and they'll tell me why, and I'll learn a little bit as I go. But, you know, for what we're doing and this new stuff that we're coming out with this year, I had to know some of it,
right?
You know, because of differing densities and materials and stuff. So super fun stuff. That was a really fun question that came from a viewer last week. I really appreciate it. Actually, the other question that we're going to talk about tonight is a question from a viewer during the week on YouTube, or maybe they commented. I don't remember when it came in, but he asked me basically, can you explain what the Q of a pickup is?
Q?
Yeah.
Tell me what you mean, like C-U-E, Q?
No, the Q, the letter Q. It's basically the resonant peak of a pickup. So
the Q stands for some kind of term somewhere.
Yeah,
That's too nerdy for me. Gotcha.
Basically, if we take, you know what I should do? Here, let me go to this other camera and I'll tell you. This is what I'm talking about. So every frequency, every pickup can basically make a certain frequency or a range of frequencies better than any other, right? Its best potential. And that's the easiest way to explain that, is that resonant frequency is, but it can move from side to side, right? Like lower to higher. And it can also get wider and narrower, right? So it can be really pointy, and it can only make this one resonant frequency very well. And as it goes from side to side, it dies off really quick. Or it can be wider, okay? And so as we start to talk about, no, we already talked about that, how pickups work, we're going to discuss that because it's really, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. What do we got going over there for questions?
If we can pop back on to talking about bacon and neck, I think we had a lingering question.
Yeah.
Does it matter if you kiln dry wood like some manufacturers do? Kiln
drying, for lack of a better term, accelerates the dryness of the wood. Anytime you build anything, This isn't guitars. This is like houses, boats, guitars, anything. The wood has to be dried out to a particular point. Now, for each thing, it could be different. Like a guitar has to be a lot drier than a 2x4 that you use in a wall. But even 2x4s are kiln dried because they cut the tree down, they make it into a 2x4, and it's too wet, too moist. Moist, great word. There's too much moisture in the wood for it to be used right away. Because you could cut a tree down today, cut the 2x4 tomorrow, but you should not use that piece of wood for anything because there's too much moisture in it. So they put it in a kiln that dries out that moisture, and then it makes that piece of wood usable sooner. So all that is to get it from the tree to the product faster. That's what kiln drying does. So and it also makes it to where it's like consistent, like, you know, because when they do it, it's all temperature controlled and stuff.
So manufacturers probably do it to have a usable piece of something faster, right?
Right. Yeah. Otherwise they gotta wait.
Or they're waiting.
Yeah. Otherwise they gotta wait, you know, like however many months or whatever for the thing to dry out. Like if you go to
but the baking is something different because it's a different temperature, right? And it's actually
degrees,
taking the sap and sugars, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's actually baking it like bread at those temperatures. Do not try it at home. Your wife will kill you because it will stink up your house. Because it's literally cooking. Yeah, it's literally cooking. It will smell like maple syrup, but it will smoke. I mean, it can.
Pine trees don't smell like maple syrup.
Yeah, but we don't use pine. That's maple.
I know, but do you always use maple though? No.
Yeah, I'll never. I don't use pine in a neck ever. You use pine in a body sometimes, but you never use it in a neck.
And you only bake necks?
Some people bake a lot of stuff, like a lot of parts. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. It's become like this. Oh, I got to get the neck baked. Oh, I got to do this because it's this new buzzword of stuff that you got to do. Well, it costs an extra $150.
I was going to say, it's like hashtag surcharge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If somebody wants a baked maple neck, it's $150 surcharge. If I build you a guitar and you want a baked maple neck, it's an extra $150. I'm going to just tell you that right now.
Right.
Because it's the time and the effort and everything to actually
probably a
go
different
and do
piece
it.
of equipment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this huge oven, you know.
Yeah.
So it costs money. That means that fancy people think they have to have it because it's a box. It's like it's a box you click, you know, like, oh, I better get it. That makes it the best because you click the box and it has all the boxes clicked. You know what I mean? Like, and there are times when it's necessary, but 90% of the time it's not. And the proof is in all these old guitars, all these old Tellys and Strats that have been under people's beds for 60 years. You take them out, adjust the truss rod, and play them. That proves it doesn't need to be done.
But does it prove that it just took 60 years to get to the same point?
See, that's what people try to say. That's what people try to say. But usually it's some tone snobbery that gets them to that point.
Right.
You know, it's not typically anything to do with like the practicality of the thing working. It's typically some tone snobbery that's like, well, it's going to change the blah, blah. And I'm like, whatever. No, it ain't. Just go play it. It's a just go play it thing for me. Unless you have a figured neck and you really want a pretty neck.
Right.
But the thing is a guy that really wants a pretty neck knows he's going to pay $500 for that neck.
Right. And he's not complaining about the bake charge.
Exactly. Because this neck right here, I'll tell you right now, is a $300 neck. Okay. If you go and buy that, that's $350 right there. If it was maple, tiger maple, it would be an extra $150 for that, and it would be an extra $150 for. So you're looking at $500 to $600, depending on the piece of wood and how it's built and all the little options and stuff. So $500 to $600 for the same neck in tiger maple, but just plan on it when you buy it to do all that stuff. And you know, it's just a more expensive piece of wood. by the time it's all done and
Right.
fixed, you know? So yeah, super fun. That was a good question. Really good question. Anybody else on that one?
Nope.
All right. So we want to talk about making pickups, because making pickups is what we do, and I love doing it. And I also want to talk about actually making them. And so what I'm going to do here is, if I can get this to work, because I actually tried to figure this out earlier, and it does work. Excellent. So let's take the Dylan off of there just for now, so that it's not in the middle of my face. Okay, so we're going to talk about how pickups work. And we're not going to just talk about coils. You notice here that I have a diagram of the magnetic field of an A5 rod magnet. So like a Strat magnet, Strat pickup magnet. We're just going to use the simplest design of pickup. And we're going to talk about some of the features, or some of the factors in how a pickup makes sound. Okay. Have you ever heard of a pickup being called a passive RLC circuit? It's possible that you've heard that. The reason is because those are the three main factors of what makes a pickup work. Okay. R being resistance, L being inductance, even though it's not an L, and C being capacitance. What's really interesting is 90% of the time, the only measurement we hear of is resistance. We don't hear of inductance or capacitance. But those are the three things that really make a pickup work. They work by basically what we have is the magnet in the middle, okay? And then we have wire wrapped around that magnet 10,000 times, 7,500 times, 8,000 times. So there are those three letters. Let's talk about how those come into play. Inductance is when we have inductance in a coil, which is the wires wrapped around it. But the inductance has to be started by something, which is the motion of the string above the magnet. And here's something very interesting that a lot of people don't know. When you move a string from side to side, or this way, back and forth over a magnet, it does not cause inductance. The only motion that causes inductance is when a piece of metal goes away from and closer to a magnet. So when a string goes in this weird elliptical shape, if you ever look YouTube a string being plucked, and you'll see it's moving all around in these weird, it's a weird figure eight sort of thing, and it's going back and forth. It's a transverse wave that goes back and forth from the nut to the bridge. But the only motion that's causing inductance is the up and down, right? The stretching back and forth and side to side is not doing it, because that magnet going up and down, and that piece of metal going up and down, away from and closer to, away from and closer to, away from and closer to, is allowing inductance to happen in the coil. Now, the reason I have this picture of this magnet is because this is where the coil shape comes into play, because the coil is wrapped around this magnet. As you can imagine, the magnetic field is stronger at the very center and starts to fall off as it gets away from the center of the magnet. So that means that the inductance, the amount of current that can be produced, changes from the inside of the pickup to the outside. This is why pickup shape is so key. And I'm going to show you another example of this in a minute. But this is why a Stratocaster pickup sounds different than a humbucker, because a Stratocaster has tall magnets where most of the coil is very close to it. Or let's use a P90 as another example, where the magnet is the coil is very short, and there is more that is far away from it, but it has a wider magnet too. So there's a whole lot of different funny stuff that's going on there. Capacitance also plays a part as well. Capacitance is, for the term that we're talking about, anytime you have a very long wire and you have a lot of wires laying next to each other. The easiest way to explain this is electricity is always more or less leaking, right? It is always falling out from the center. So if you have a wire, at the very center of the wire, the electrons are doing what they're doing. As it gets to the outside of the wire, it literally, I almost want to say like off gases off of the wire, and it gets lost. When you have two wires laying next to each other, it goes into the other wire. So you have two wires laying right next to each other, and this is always happening. This little bit of capacitive loss is always happening. But we have all these wires laying next to each other, they're actually going into each other. The more that does that, the higher the capacitance of the pickup. Okay? So the things that cause that are how neatly the wires are laid together. So if they're kind of crisscrossing each other and kind of messy, the capacitance will be lower because they can't like give each other stuff. But if they're laying really, really tight, really nice and neat next to each other, then the capacitance will be higher. There's a give and take here. The inductance will be higher if the wires are more neatly laid. But the capacitance will be higher fighting against the inductance. If the wires are really messy, the capacitance will be lower, but the inductance will also be lower. Really crazy. Resistance, we know what that is. That resistance basically just measures the length of the wire. That tells you how much wire is crammed onto that bobbin. Another factor that's really weird and you don't think about a whole lot is the capacitance of the entire circuit. When we're talking about capacitance here, we could only be talking about like 150 to 200 picofarads. The thing is that could only be like a third of your entire guitar circuit when you count your guitar cable. So if you have a 20-foot guitar cable, not one of mine, like a normal one that you buy from the store, you could have like 800 picofarads, which means the capacitance of your pickup could be a very small percentage of your entire circuit. So that means that if you got a better pickup or a better cable, you could really tell the difference because that would make your pickup more noticeable, if that makes sense. But if you have a really high capacitance pickup, like a Dimebag Darrell or something, the cable, you won't know the difference because the capacitance of the pickup is so high anyway that you won't be able to tell. So that's why some people will buy a really expensive cable and not be able to tell the difference, or the cable's not actually that good. But other people can buy a cable and be like, oh my goodness, that made a whole big difference in my tone on my guitar because they actually had a good pickup to begin with. All these things can be affected by how the pickup is wound, how magnetic the magnet is, the shape of the magnet, and I'll show you another one. Check this out. Let me show you. This is very, very cool. So here is a diagram, more or less, of what a Telecaster bridge pickup looks like. You notice how much different the magnetic field looks? The magnetic field is a different shape. Okay, so basically you have, what you've done is, instead of the coil changing the shape, because a Telecaster pickup is basically pretty much the same thing as a Stratocaster pickup, right? Shape wise, but they sound completely differently. And everybody thinks that's because the metal changes the magnetic field. Well, a lot of people have a lot of weird ideas of how it works, why it changes it. But the real reason why it changes it is because it changes the shape of the magnetic field. You see that picture? That's basically what's happening. And what it does is it allows for a different level of inductance in a different part of the pickup than another. That's all it really is. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. So what does all of this mean? That's what it really comes down to. What does all of this really mean for you? When we go to a website and we look at pickups, most of the time the only number you're ever going to see is the resistance. That can kind of give you an idea of how much voltage the pickup is going to make, more or less, how loud it's going to be. But it does not always give you, and maybe not even that so much, the overall power of the pickup, more or less. But it doesn't always give you the tone of the pickup. The resonant peak is what really would give you that. And how wide or how narrow that is, and where it is along the frequency line, the frequency range. The thing about it is, nobody ever really shows you that. And it's a little bit of it's hard to get a good read on that one. Because there's different ways to measure it. And do you measure it with a load? Do you not measure it with a load? All this kind of stuff. So,
can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
So can I interrupt you at this time to ask how you would like to handle super chats that come in?
We need to answer them right now.
All right. I saw your hidden pickup telly. I have built a couple, but I'm having trouble with the tone. Do I need a special high output? Or it says R. I don't know if he means R active pickups. Or I don't know.
Okay, so
this is Michael Perry.
Thank you, Michael, for the super chat. Especially, I appreciate that. Anybody that basically wants me to stop what I'm doing and answer a question for you, that super chat feature is there, and we do use it. And we're going to get back to this because it's all kind of related. You got to wind a different pickup for a hidden pickup in a Telecaster. Remember we talked about how the string has to go up and down over the magnet for it to work. Now we're introducing so much of a distance there. And as you saw in our drawings just a minute ago, that really falls away very quickly. So there's two things that we could do. We could wind you a really hot pickup. But what I would personally do in that guitar is I would put one of our T90 pickups in there, where we basically take a Telecaster pickup that looks like a P90 and put it in there, because
so I think he's building.
Okay.
Do I need a special high output or active pickups?
Yeah, active
high output.
Yeah, he needs a lot of magnet.
Lot of magnet.
Yep. It doesn't have to be a high output pickup, but it would have to be a lot of magnet. And here's the thing. So let's talk about how all this works together. We've got R, L, and C. We've got resistance, we've got inductance, and we've got capacitance. As we raise the resistance, the capacitance is also going to go up. And the inductance is also going to go up more or less. But it is also has to do with the magnetism too. If you put and put it in more simple terms, I'm trying to answer this question right. I went through all this super nerdy stuff because somebody asked me to go through the details, and so that they would understand like the main components of what makes a pickup, right? And what makes the sound.
Right.
The bottom line is it's way too nerdy for normal life. So when we're answering a question for him on this hidden pickup thing, he needs a lot of magnet. Here's the problem though. When you put a lot of magnet, like a ceramic magnet, in that position, and then you put it so far away from the strings, it's going to be very tinny and very harsh sounding. So he's also going to want to have a lot of winds. In my opinion, what he should do is put a a ceramic magnet on there, and he should wind it with 43 gauge wire and pack as much wire as he can on there so that it becomes sort of like a little 59 kind of single coil version of a little 59 where it's really hot, but it has enough coil on there to offset the sharpness of that ceramic magnet, and then maybe it'll work. That's what I had to do, and it actually ended up sounding really good. I'll tell you another thing you could do that would be kind of fun is if the pickup sounds too harsh, if you get a really hot pickup in that position, this is something I have not tried, and I wanted to try it, but I actually sold the guitar, is I wanted to try putting a really hot pickup. So a lot of winds, a lot of magnet, super, super hot, like crazy hot, and then mess with a capacitor almost like an Esquire circuit, you know?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Where it would kind of take some of that edge back off, where you could actually make that, like tune it with a capacitor into like a more usable tone.
Right.
So that would be that's what I would try.
Cool.
And if he has more questions about that, feel free to have him email me because that's really super fun. Let's see, somebody else says, as an electrical engineer, this conversation is killing me, but honestly, your understanding of the action is impressive. Yeah, you know, I am the challenge with a topic like this is to try to get as much detail as possible for the guys that really want to nerd out about it.
But not lose me.
But not, yeah. And the problem is that in real, because he's right.
Yeah.
You know, for me to try to put this in a sentence and talk off the top of my, like, and do it live, it is really probably super brutal. But in real life, we don't really use this stuff anyway.
Right.
So go back and watch it a couple times, try to catch it, you know. But in real life, what you really need is somebody to have a conversation with you before you buy pickups.
To understand what you want.
Yeah, because knowing all of those things, you will confuse yourself into this minutia of like, oh my gosh. Instead, just shoot me a message and be like, this is what I'm trying to, like him.
Sure.
You know, this is what I'm trying to do. What would you suggest? And even if you don't,
sounds like a fun project.
Yeah. And even if you don't buy from me, that's okay. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay.
It's all learning.
Yep. Because that helps, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All we're doing is asking each other questions and just learning all the time.
Absolutely.
So, super fun. What else is going on over there?
Did you address the scatter wound versus, did you see that?
I did.
I think it was part of the conversation, but I don't, you know, with the delay, it's hard to tell exactly what inspired them to pop that question up at that time.
Yes. Okay. We can briefly talk about scatter winding because it's super simple.
Scatter wind versus normal winding.
That term came about because people were winding pickups by hand versus doing it with a machine.
Yep.
Anybody that does it by hand is scatter winding.
Because you just can't control it enough, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can be pretty stinking precise. But people are like, are you going to scatter wind it? Yeah, I am, because I'm not a machine. Basically, those machines, all they are is a bobbin that, like, it's a machine that, like, just pulses back and forth, right? What's crazy about it is the really expensive ones, they can program it to be going perfectly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then go like that, and then back and forth, and then back and forth. Because the benefit of doing it is, and this is why hand wound pickups sound better than ones that you buy at the store, or they sound different, is because the capacitance in the pickup is different because it's not 100% perfect. This is also why you could take me, Tim McNelly, Lindy Fralin, whoever you want, doesn't matter. Anybody that makes pickups, you could give us the same winding machines. You could give us all the same magnets, all the same materials, sit us down at the same table, tell us to put exactly the same amount of winds on the same pickup, do the same exact thing, all the same wire off the same spool, and all 3 pickups would sound different. It's in your hands.
Right.
You know, and you'll hear customers of mine too that, you know, have had 4 or 5, 6 different pickups from me and said, I can tell it's you. Just like I can tell it's a Lawler. And I love it. And I can tell it's a Fralin, and I don't like it as much as a Lawler. I've not had as many Tim McNally pickups. This gold foil that's in this Telly is the first one that I've ever had personally, and I've played a couple of his other pickups. There's another couple I won't say them out loud, but there's a couple other small winders that I've played that I'm just like, they're good. They're really good, but they're just not. I mean, I wind mine the way I do because I like that. So
right, and that's the thing. Like,
yeah,
you know,
and that's why when somebody calls me and says, "What do you do?" and I say, "I don't really do that." It doesn't offend me when somebody says, "Well, I'm going to go get a Lawler instead." And there's a lot of times, even on forums and YouTube and on Facebook and stuff, you know, if you want a wide range humbucker, get a Lawler. If you want a gold foil, get a Tim McNally.
Right.
You know, I mean, these guys are good at things that they do. And I'm just going to tell you, go get a Charlie Christian from Lawler. Go get it, you know, because they do it and they're good at it. So, yeah, man, super fun. I love that stuff, though. I still do love it a lot. I just like making pickups. Humbuckers this week. We're making a lot of humbuckers this week. So if you are in the market for one, let me know.
So the user is going to reach out to you, email you, as you said, because apparently he's creating it's an entire prototype, his own design guitar.
Oh, wow. With hidden pickups. So he's super
excited, and he wants to talk to you about it.
There is, it is not on my iPad. Otherwise, I could throw it up on the screen for you. When we went to that place, what's the name of that place in Chattanooga, Tennessee? The Bluebird Guitar Museum.
Yeah.
Fender actually experimented for a time with a guitar. It was I want to say it was based on a Fender Mustang, something like that. Songbird.
I knew it wasn't Bluebird.
It wasn't Bluebird.
I was like bird something, but it wasn't blue.
That's gross ice cream.
Songbird.
Yeah, Songbird Museum in Chattanooga, Tennessee. If you're a guitar player, or even if you're not, drop what you're doing right after this show and go there and see that place. It's amazing. But they had in their vault, they had I can't remember if it was based on a Strat or if it was based on a Mustang, but it was a prototype guitar that they didn't actually ever build, but it had no pickups above the pickguard. All the pickups were below the pickguard. And it was not a plastic pickguard. It was a phenolic pickguard that was, you know, basically like a paper sort of thing. So I know that it's been experimented with enough. And I think, in my opinion, the only reason I totally encourage this guy to do this, because the only reason it hasn't been done is because people will think it's weird. But I'm all about the stuff that nobody's ever done before, or nobody's ever successfully pulled off.
For sure.
I mean, totally try it. I think it's awesome. I was talking to my friend Kevin Beller. He's a designer for Seymour Duncan. He's worked there for like 30 years. And he told me, he's like, you know, we've probably tried almost everything there is in the book. And he's like, that doesn't mean there's bad ideas. It just means it's stuff that we just don't do. So there are good ideas out there that people have
that just haven't come to fruition yet.
What
was that statistic we read the other day? I mean, this is the same thing as the business statistic, right? Like the first thing is only certain percentage successful, and then somebody else perfects it and it succeeds. Like,
right. So if you try to do something nobody else has ever done before, you only succeed in that business 8% of the time.
Right.
If you take a totally brand new idea, then you only succeed 8% of the time. If you try to do it, like improve somebody else's idea, it's like 43%.
Right.
Much, much higher.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a truly new, innovative idea that nobody's ever done, it's a big risk, but it's also
but if it goes, you know?
Well, and in the guitar industry, everybody has this, I believe, to a fault, has this feeling that it's all been done. But that is only because there's also this lack of willingness to try new ideas by guitar players.
Right.
And that's why I've always said, or I've said, no, I've not always said, but since this whole conversation about guitar dying off has come up, guitar players are killing guitar. It's not anybody else. We're doing it to ourselves. So we just need to be able to try stuff and want to do things. So that is very cool. And thank you for the super chat. That might be the first one we've ever gotten on this show, and I really appreciate it.
First one I've had to deal with, so I was like, what do I do?
That's exactly what you do. We drop everything and we answer that person's question.
That was
I
fun.
really appreciate that.
And it was
very
relevant,
much.
so that was
Yes,
even better.
It was great. Thanks everybody for being a part of our show. And I know that there's still little hiccups here and there. And
we're working on it.
We are working on it, and we are figuring it out.
By we, I mean him.
But it keeps getting better and more fun, and we're new people.
Oh, for sure.
And man, I just really appreciate the audience. It's so awesome. Is there any last minute ones we can squeeze in there?
No, but they're laughing at my official 5-minute warning.
Oh. She keeps me on track. It's pretty awesome. I love this. This is so fun. Thanks everybody. And this week, I think hopefully we'll be able to do some more videos and stuff. This last week was a lot of stuff to do with all this and working on it all. I think I did a couple videos about it. We'll probably do some more videos about it.
And you
actually
say that so stoically, and really you were like so stoked.
Oh my gosh, have I been stoked? And it sounds better.
Oh yeah,
it sounds
is nice.
great.
I mean, I hope they can hear that too. You already figured out the whole audio, so there's going to be music going out, right?
Sound going out on our out.
All right, y'all tell me if you hear the.
Oh, I'll know because I can see it.
Did you say
right
outro?
Here.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, my outro.
Is that like a official word?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. It is an official word.
All right.
So with that, I think we're going to try it. And I hope everyone has a great week. Check us out on all of our Dylan Talks Tones, Instagram. Please share this. Let everybody know. I was telling one of my friends I am not promoting this enough. I think with the more and more everybody that's coming and participating, it's getting more and more fun. So just tell all your friends about it and share the videos and all that kind of stuff. I really do appreciate it. And, other than that,
have a good night.
And maybe we didn't fix it.
I don't hear it at all. So what did you do? Is it playing at all?
It should be, but it's not. So we'll have to figure that out. Oh, hang on. You know what? We're going to take this.
Still have 2 minutes left. You're good.
We still have 2 minutes left, and this is all an experiment. So we're going to do this again.